World History Vault presents Athens' buried shame. The red-hot iron left a perfect, smoking mark on bare skin. A circle burned deep, stamped with the initials of an owner, placed carefully on the left thigh, where no tunic could ever hide it. The girl did not scream. She had no tears left. At her feet, the marble floor of the Athenian agora darkened with fresh blood. Just a few steps away, free citizens celebrated the triumphs of democracy. It was the year 430 BC, the golden age of Athens. That mark was not the punishment of a criminal. It was a brand of ownership. She was 12 years old, bought for less than the price of a loaf of barley bread. They say the body does not lie. And in classical Athens, the bodies of thousands of women told a story the philosophers chose not to write. A story of a system that turned human flesh into property, sexual violence into law, and suffering into public revenue. A system so disturbing that Athens buried it in silence. Welcome to World History Vault. We don't just polish the marble statues. We look for the blood still staining the stone. Today, we descend into the heart of Athenian democracy, to a truth so dark it will shatter your view of the ancient world. If you're ready for history without the filter, hit subscribe. What you're about to hear changes everything. This isn't a story of a queen or a fallen princess. It's the story of thousands of nameless girls. Their broken bodies financed the glory of Athens. Their pain paid for its temples, its theaters, and its very democracy. To understand how the cradle of freedom became a living hell for half its population, we have to look at the law. And it starts with a name you know, Solon. In the 6th century BC, Solon's reforms are remembered as acts of liberation for Athens. He abolished debt slavery among citizens. He widened political participation. For free Athenian men, this was justice. But hidden inside these laws was a fatal bargain. The freedom of the citizen was built directly on the total enslavement of others. Solon's laws carefully drew a line. On one side, persons with rights. On the other, property. And among all property, none were more exposed, more disposable, than the women forced into the pornai, the sexual trade. The system was brutally efficient. Girls entered Athens through 3 paths: born into slavery, captured in war, or sold by their own families in times of famine. There was no minimum age. Records show girls as young as 7 being prepared. Higher prices were paid for those who had not yet menstruated, their youth treated as a rare commodity. Once purchased, they were taken to the ergosteria, specialized workshops. Here, human beings were sorted like livestock. Teeth, skin, posture, obedience, all assessed. The most beautiful were assigned to elite symposiums. The average were sent to brothels near the port. The weak or sick were pushed into the darkest alleys. But every single one, without exception, was branded. The pain was intentional. The scar was permanent. It carried one message. Asterisk, this body does not belong to you. It never will. Asterisk. Their owners didn't call them women. They called them andropoda, man-footed things, walking tools. Under Solon's law, killing a sexual slave carried the same penalty as destroying a plow, a fine paid to the owner for damaged property. There was no legal concept of rape against them. In the eyes of the law, they lacked the capacity to consent. Their only function was to receive. Before we go deeper into this machine, I have to ask, does this change how you see the glory that was Greece? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. Now, here's the part that turns horror into hypocrisy. The Athenian state didn't just tolerate this trade. It organized it. Brothels required state licenses. Every transaction was taxed. Officials known as a stinomoi conducted regular inspections, not for morality, but for quality control. Was the merchandise still fit for use? The scale was staggering. Tax records suggest between 15 and 20% of Athens' state revenue came from the sexual trade. That money funded the Parthenon. It paid for the plays of Sophocles. It financed the schools where Socrates and Plato debated virtue. Let that sink in. The same democracy that praised equality depended financially on systematic rape. The wisdom of the philosophers was paid for with the blood of children. The system pulled everyone in. Slaves cleaned the brothels. Artisans forged the shackles. Physicians performed crude abortions, not to heal, but to return bodies to circulation. Priests blessed rituals. Even free Athenian women sometimes served as overseers. No part of the city stood outside. Everyone knew where the money came from. The law protected this system with cold precision. A woman who refused a client could be publicly whipped. One who tried to escape was branded on the face. One who struck a client, even in self-defense, could be executed without a trial. But the law also imposed protections. It was forbidden to permanently injure or kill a slave without the owner's consent. Why? Not because they were human, because they were valuable property. Athenian law protected them exactly as it protected a valuable plow or a good horse. And all of this unfolded while the greatest philosophers in history debated justice just meters away. Socrates taught that wisdom began by admitting ignorance, yet never publicly challenged a system that reduced girls to instruments. Plato imagined a perfect republic, while accepting slavery as necessary for his philosopher kings. Aristotle argued some people were slaves by nature. He said the difference between a wife and a sexual slave was like the difference between a lyre and a hammer. One was for harmony, the other was for crude, basic use. The contradiction wasn't an accident. It was the foundation. Athenian democracy, the ideal of equal participation, functioned only because the majority of labor, physical, emotional, and sexual, was done by people with no rights, no voice, no legal existence. The freedom of some rested entirely on the absolute unfreedom of others. Most of these women did not live past 25. Their bodies were destroyed by violence, disease, and forced abortions. When they died, there were no funerals, no cemeteries. Most were dumped into the Parthenon, a pit for criminals and refuse. Others were sold to medical schools for dissection. Even in death, their bodies served the civilization that destroyed them. But the system had one final, chilling purpose. It wasn't just about money or pleasure. It was about control. The same laws that fiercely protected the sexual purity of citizen women, the wives and daughters of Athenians, simultaneously legitimized the sexual enslavement of everyone else. An Athenian who raped another citizen's wife could be executed. That same man could violate 100 enslaved women and be a respected member of the assembly. Why? Because citizen women were sacred. Their purity guaranteed Athenian bloodlines. The pornai were a safety valve, a place to redirect male desire toward bodies that couldn't contaminate the lineage. The virtue of some was sustained by the absolute degradation of others. Centuries later, the monuments remain. The Parthenon, eternal symbol of beauty, was financed in part by taxes on this suffering. The theater of Dionysus, where sublime tragedies premiered, was also the setting for ritualized sexual violence during festivals. Millions walk these ruins today, admiring the white marble, never asking what price was paid for it. This is the truth history often buries. There is no innocent beauty built on suffering, no pure wisdom that coexists with brutality. Classical Athens gave us democracy, philosophy, and art that define the West. But it also gave us the clearest proof that humanity's greatest achievements can be built on its most horrific crimes. So, I'll leave you with this question, and I want your honest answer in the comments. When we admire the legacy of Athens today, its philosophy, its democracy, its art, are we obliged to also remember the thousands who were crushed to create it? Or does the beauty of the legacy justify ignoring the brutality of its cost? This is the uncomfortable conversation. This is history at its most raw. If this kind of unflinching look at the past is why you're here, you belong with us. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Because at World History Vault, we believe true understanding doesn't come from polishing statues, but from examining the cracks and the blood still visible in the stone. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.